Hello and welcome to ClockTower Game Studios. Today we're going to be talking about how to use natural materials such as wood to do the interior decorating on the transit hub for Neo Nagoya. So we're going to be using coffee stirs to make effects such as this, where you can see like the wooden shelves with the natural wood grain and do the wood trim around the building as well. Just to bring you up to date since last time, had some family emergency stuff, had to fly home to the Midwest from the Pacific Northwest. That took about 2 weeks of travel back and forth, took me out of the hobby for a little while. I do apologize for my absence, but I don't want to get into a lot of details on the matter. Just suffice it to say that it was important and I needed to take the time to do the right thing for the family and for myself. I do apologize again for the absence, but it was necessary. So, that out of the way, let's talk about the progress that has been made on the transit hub. So as you can see, I've got the second floor here completely done. I've got the cardboard cladding all the way around it for the rail and for the details around the signage. I made it to where this is magnetized. The second set of steps up the building are, so it kind of closes up there and is hidden. It hides the switch, the controls for the lighting. So we just flip the switch, put that back into place. It still needs sealed up a little better around here and on the underside. The underside's not as big a problem as the roof is, but I think a piece of cardstock can seal that up and it'll be fine. But this, when it sits down in, as you can see, it's got the lights on the underside as well. It'll also light up the interior, which is why we're worried so much about the interior decorating. As you can see, I've also done the wood grain around the light fixtures on the interior, so that when you're looking at it from the windows, you'll be able to see that little bit of extra touch of luxury around the light fixtures as well. So with that said, let's dive right in and get started. So of course, one of the first things you'll need whenever you're getting ready to do this is your wooden material. I'm using wood coffee stirs that I purchased at a local supermarket, but you can get these at Starbucks or any other coffee shop for free if you want to just grab a few. I knew I would need a lot, so I went ahead and bought a bag. They're not very expensive. I think I spent like $2, $3 for the whole bag of, I think it's like a 300, 400 count. It's a lot for not very much money. So anyway, you want to exaggerate the wood grain on these, because if you don't, it doesn't show up very well once you start painting it and everything. So in order to do that, I tried a couple different things, including the back of an X-Acto blade. I tried a wire brush. I tried a wire wheel on a rotary tool. And what I ended up settling on was this awl, or a hole punch for leather working. I found that it gives the chunkiest, nicest results with the least amount of effort and the least amount of fuss. It also didn't make a very big mess. So I just carve along the wood grain that's already present in the wood. Like I said, this isn't adding anything. It's not carving it from scratch. It's just exaggerating what's already there. So I just do that to all of them that I'm using here, and then we'll move on to painting. So the next step is to stain the wood to enhance the natural wood grain and add some depth of color by using my homemade wash. So the wash I've got here is made using a little bit of distilled water, some brown ink, some matte medium, and some Flow Aid. I'll post a link to that. I believe I did a video for that previously when I was talking about glazes and washes earlier on in the YouTube channel's history. So as I'm doing this, I just take a large amount of the wash and paint it on. I want a really thick coat of this. It's okay if it pools, it'll just add to the interest. And the biggest thing to be concerned about here is making sure you get the edges as well, because some of those will be exposed while you're doing the work. So here, as you can see, I've just got them on parchment paper so I don't stain the desk or the work mat underneath it. And like I said, I just paint on the wash very liberally. So here, as you can see, I've already glued in some of the wood strips, the coffee stirs, onto the foam core. I just did that using plain PVA Elmer's glue wall. Sadly, I lost the footage where I did that. I can't really help that. It got lost somewhere in the shuffle over the couple of weeks where I was trying to film this and take care of all the family business. But anyway, it's not difficult. I just took the non-stained side of the coffee stirrers because only one side was stained, and then I just glued them straight onto the exposed surfaces of the foam core. So here, as you can see, I'm going along some of the joins where the coffee stirrers meet up on the countertops and in the corners of the counter edge. And I'm just carefully using a pointed brush to paint in some more of the wash to help really bring out those joins and make them obvious. After doing that, we'll move on to actually building a shelving unit, or the shelves into the shelving unit. As you can see, I've already done the wooden cladding on the front of the shelving structure. So next up, I want to make sure that the Sculpey modeled stuffed animals and toys would fit on the shelves. So here you can see I'm test fitting the teddy bears and a couple other things just to make sure they fit. So the next step is to decide how tall it needs to be. And I do that using the same toys, and I've got that referenced. So once I've done that, I know that I'm going to use the toothpicks. So I need to stain the toothpicks to match the rest of the wood. So there I just get a little of the stain out. And again, that's the homemade wash that I used for the rest of it. The wood grain will be a little different, so the stain will affect it differently, but these are just supports for the actual shelves. They're probably not even actually necessary. I could probably just glue directly to the frame, but I wanted that little bit of extra support and the little bit of extra realism. So here I'm just marking on both sides using the grid on my cutting mat as my kind of guideline for how high they need to be. And once I get those marked, I'll grab one of my models and make sure that the height is at the right scale I want it to be. So there I'm checking against the model that I've got handy. I know that that's the height I want the shelves, because it'll make it appear as though they're within reach of a model standing on the floor. And the next thing to do is to get a length and start cutting the supports out of the toothpicks. First, cut the sharp end off of the toothpick so you have a blunt end to work from. And then the next thing to do is to line that up against the wooden slat at the front of the shelf, and then just make a mark with your hobby knife so you've got your length. So once I got the length, I just start cutting them all down to size, and then I stain them using a little bit of the same wash that I stained the wood with. And this time we're going to use super glue because I need this to work a little bit quicker. And it's a little fiddlier, so there we go. Alright, I'm just gonna put a little bead of that right there and right there. I'm gonna grab one of these that's had a chance to soak up that stain just a little, and I'm gonna just put it right into place. And I want to push it all the way forward and make sure it's seated all the way down and as level as possible. I'm going to take a little piece of my scrap here and clean up the excess super glue so it doesn't look too bad. That will get a bit of paint over it, so it's not the end of the world. But there's no reason not to clean up your mess a little bit. So now that we've got the supports in there, we need to cut our shelves to length. And this is probably going to take a couple of these. And again, score it, give it a good deep gouge, work it a little, and break it. And when you're breaking it, you want to pull it towards the crease because it'll give the back edge a better cut, a better break that way. Okay, so we're gonna continue on, and we want these to fit inside to inside. So we're just gonna use the actual shelf as our marker for the first one anyway. So as I was saying, so you score this, and once your scoring's deep enough, you can, instead of pulling it like just back, it'll splinter. But if you pull it towards the crease, it breaks off really clean. And then you've got your shelf that'll just sit down on top of the others. Like so. So I'm going to go ahead and do up all of those. So now that we've covered what I'm using the wood grain for with the Transit Hub build, let's talk about some other uses you can do with the same sort of techniques and materials across a couple other uses. So I've used it also previously on an unfinished build that I started before the YouTube channel started for what was supposed to be a capsule hotel combined with a onsen on the top floor, and it was supposed to be like another high luxury building. So the outside of the top floor where the onsen is had all wood grain and had a wood finish, and then the onsen itself had wood paneling for the walls and then wood trim around the tub. You'll be able to see those in the pictures down that way. So as you can see, you can do a lot of different things with this. Like I said, I've also done like shutters for a capsule hotel, like a luxury capsule hotel that's unfinished. I used just toothpicks or cocktail sticks and thread for that. They turned out really nice. I really liked how those worked. The way I did that was I laid them on a piece of wax paper, glued kind of the whole thing together, and then just put thread down across it and made sure they all lined up. And then I just kind of popped that panel once it was finished into the capsule's doorway. And then I also made some sort of rolled up ones that go into the capsules you're supposed to be able to see into. Also used it for thresholds. You can use it for window framing. You'll see a lot of other YouTubers that use it for Tudor style fantasy buildings where they do the wood beam posts and some of the finish for those. So you can use this sort of technique for a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways to approach it. You can also emulate some of this using foam and just carving the foam to look like rough hewn wood. That's really popular for a more kind of stylized fantasy setting than anything else. And after thinking about everything that I've done and where the channel's at and just where my life is at in general, I kind of wanted to thank some of the people that got me here in light of recent events in my own life and the family incident that I had to go home for. A lot of why I have gotten to where I am is because of my family. I may not always have been the closest with a lot of family, but the encouragement, especially when I was very little, of my grandparents to be artistic, to draw, to build things. My grandmother always encouraged me to draw and kept a lot of my drawings and encouraged me to keep at it. And then my grandparents, or my grandfathers on both sides, encouraged me to build things and make stuff. And honestly, without those people in my lives, I wouldn't be here. My parents included, my mom and my stepdad. They've always encouraged me to do what I thought was right and what I enjoyed, and encouraged me to pursue the hobbies I have now. And I used to play games with my mom all the time. My brothers and I used to play D&D and Magic and Werewolf the Apocalypse with my mom as a kid. And I miss those days, and they're definitely part of what drove me to where I'm at now as far as the gaming industry and gaming hobby goes. So if you have kids, encourage them to do what they love. Encourage them to get out there and make things and be artistic. Encourage them to pursue what they're passionate about. You never know how much just something as small as keeping a piece of art they made when they're like 8 on the refrigerator actually can do to a person in the future, and how much of an impact that can have on their life and what they pursue. So definitely recommend it. Like I said, I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for all the encouragement I got when I was younger from my family, especially my grandparents. So a big shout out to them and a thank you. And I wish they could see where I'm at today as far as both my life and my hobbies. I really wish I could share it with them. So also keep that in mind. If you do stuff like this, share it with your family, share it with the people you love while they're alive. It's important. So, sorry for that. Hopefully that wasn't too depressing. But thank you very much for watching the video this far. Hopefully you enjoyed it, learned something. Hopefully it inspired you to do something cool like this. If it did, make sure to give the video a like, hit that bell notification so you can see what we're up to next week. I think I'm going to take a step back from building the building while I get the 3D printer repaired, because there's some details I want to use the 3D printer for. I might do a painting tutorial for the next video, so keep an eye out for that. Remember, you can always support us by buying cups of coffee at buymeacoffee.com. You can also support us on Patreon. This month's Patreon campaign rewards include a short story about Captain Ellsworth and Ellie and how they get some of the more information and toys that bring them more into the wider galaxy that is the S.E.E.R setting. You can also check out all of the links to the tools and equipment used and materials used in this video. Those will all be in the description below. Links to all of that will. So again, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And remember, at the Clock Tower, it's always game time.